All right, today we're going to talk about one of the most important shields you have against government power, the Fifth Amendment. And let me tell you, it is an absolute powerhouse of protections. We're going to break down exactly what it all means for you. Of course you have, right? It's a classic line in pretty much every cop show or movie ever made. But that famous phrase, the right to remain silent, that is just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle.
That's right. It's not just one right. The Fifth Amendment is actually kind of like a 5-in-1 deal, a bundle of 5 totally distinct rights, and every single one is designed to make sure the legal system is fair. So what are the other 4? Okay, wow, that is a mouthful. Twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. The original language is super dense, I get it, but don't worry, tucked away in that one long sentence are the 5 powerful protections we're about to unpack. Okay, so here's the game plan. We're going to look at the grand jury as a shield, then the whole idea of one trial, one shot. Of course, we'll hit the famous right to silence. After that, the huge concept of due process. And finally, we'll talk about what happens when the government wants your property. So first up is a protection that, honestly, doesn't get a lot of airtime. Before the federal government can even formally charge you with a serious crime, they have to get permission from something called a grand jury. And this is a really key difference from the trial juries you always see on TV. A grand jury isn't there to decide if you're guilty or innocent. Nope. Their only job is to listen to the prosecutor's evidence and decide if there's enough there, what they call probable cause, to even bother with a trial at all. So what's the point? Well, think of it like this. It's a buffer. It's a stopgap designed to prevent the government from dragging someone through the mud with weak or just plain malicious charges. It makes sure that before your life gets turned completely upside down, a group of regular citizens agrees that, yeah, there's actually a real case here. All right, so building on that theme of fairness, let's move on to the second protection, the double jeopardy clause, or, as I like to call it, one trial, one shot. And this is a huge deal. It means the government gets one chance, just one swing at the bat, to convict you for a crime. If you're found not guilty, acquitted, that's it. It's over. They can't just go back, find a new jury, and try again and again until they get the result they want. It stops the state with all its power and money from just endlessly harassing a person.
Seems pretty straightforward, right? You can't be tried twice for the same crime. But there's a massive exception to this rule that catches a lot of people by surprise.
And this is where it gets really interesting. It's called the separate sovereign doctrine. Because the federal government and state governments are seen as separate powers or sovereigns, they can both prosecute you for the exact same act if that act broke both federal and state laws. A really well-known example is the Rodney King case, where the officers were tried on state charges and then later tried again on federal civil rights charges for the very same incident. One act, 2 trials, and totally legal. Okay, now for the star of the show, the one everyone knows and loves. Let's talk about the right against self-incrimination, or as we all say, the right to remain silent.
The core idea here is actually really simple. The burden of proof is on the government. They have to prove you're guilty. You don't have to do their job for them. You cannot be forced or compelled to say anything that could help convict you.
And this right didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was forged in fire. For centuries in Europe, legal systems used brutal torture to literally beat confessions out of people. You had the infamous English Star Chamber, where they'd make you swear an oath to tell the truth before you even knew what you were accused of. It was a direct reaction to centuries of that kind of horrific abuse.
And all that history leads us right up to 1966 and the landmark Supreme Court case Miranda versus Arizona. The court basically said this right is so fundamental, so important, that police have to tell you about it. When you're in custody, before they question you, they must read you those rights we all know by heart.
All right, protection number 4. And this one is a beast. It's arguably the most broad and fundamental principle in our entire legal system, the due process clause. This idea is ancient. We're talking Magna Carta ancient, all the way back to the 1200s. It is the ultimate guarantee of fair play. At its very heart, it just means the government has to follow the rules. Judgment has to come before punishment, not the other way around. Okay, but fair procedure sounds a little vague, doesn't it? So what does it actually get you? Well, over hundreds of years, courts have decided that it guarantees some of the most basic things we think of when we imagine a fair trial. And here's the really wild part. Some of our most basic legal principles,
like the fact that the prosecution has to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, aren't actually written down word for word in the Constitution. They exist because courts have said they are an essential part of what it means to have due process. It's this powerful, living guarantee of fairness. Okay, and that brings us to our fifth and final protection. This one switches gears a little bit, away from criminal trials and over to property rights. It's called the Takings Clause. This gives the government a power called eminent domain, which is the right to take private property. But, and this is a huge but, it comes with two really important strings attached. First, it has to be for public use, like a road or a school. And second, they have to pay you what it's worth or just compensation. But here's where it gets super tricky in the modern world. That definition of public use has been stretched a lot. Courts have actually allowed a city to take someone's private home and give the land to a big corporation to build a factory, with the argument being that, hey, new jobs and more taxes are a public benefit. As you can imagine, this is a really fierce debate. So let's wrap it all up. The Fifth Amendment isn't just one thing. It's this incredible 5-layered shield. It protects you from being charged without good reason, from being tried over and over, from being forced to testify against yourself, from unfair rules, and from having your property taken without getting paid fairly. It's all about ensuring fairness when you're up against the immense power of the government. You know, these rights were written down over 200 years ago, but the challenges they deal with, things like privacy, technology, and national security, they're always changing. And that leaves us with a really big question, one we're still trying to answer. How do we keep balancing these absolutely essential rights of the individual with the power and the needs of the state?